My name is Samuel Theodore Hawthorne, and I'm 87 years old. They say a man shouldn't outlive his usefulness, but here I am, scratching these words onto paper with hands that shake like autumn leaves. The grandfather clock in the hallway just struck 3 in the morning, and I can't sleep again. Haven't been able to for months now, not since I realized the truth about being forgotten. I live in a house that's too big for one person, a Victorian monstrosity on Willow Creek Road that my Martha and I bought 43 years ago when dreams were currency and love was interest. Martha's been gone 12 years now. Cancer took her on a Tuesday afternoon, while the sun had the audacity to shine. But this story isn't about Martha, God rest her soul. It's about what happens when children forget the man who never forgot them. I have 3 children. Had. Have. The verb tenses get complicated when you're discussing people who are alive but dead to you. Michael, my oldest, is 52 now. He's a lawyer in Chicago with a pristine house and a pristine life that apparently has no room for the man who taught him to ride a bike in that very same city, running behind him for hours until my lungs burned. Jennifer, my middle child, 49, married a tech executive and lives in San Francisco. She posts pictures of her vacations on something called Instagram. I know because my neighbor, young Tommy, showed me once. Beautiful pictures of everywhere except here. And David, my baby at 45, works on Wall Street. He trades things that don't exist for money that's mostly numbers on a screen. The last time I saw them all together was at Martha's funeral. They stayed for exactly 2 days, heads buried in their phones, making arrangements for me. The arrangements turned out to be a twice-monthly grocery delivery and a life alert button that I wear around my neck like a cowbell on a forgotten cow. Michael said he'd call every Sunday. Jennifer promised to visit for holidays. David left a check. That was 12 years ago. The Sunday calls lasted 3 months before they became monthly, then birthday and Christmas only, then nothing. The holiday visits turned into cards, then emails, then automated e-cards that said, "Thinking of you," in fonts that tried too hard to look like handwriting. The check, at least, was honest. It cleared. But I'm getting ahead of myself, the way old men do when the past and present start blending like watercolors in the rain. You need to understand that I wasn't always alone. This house once thundered with footsteps, rang with laughter, smelled like pot roast on Sundays and popcorn on Friday movie nights. I coached Little League, built the tree house that's still standing in the backyard, though the wood's gone gray as my hair, attended every school play, every concert, every game. I was there for skin knees and broken hearts, for driving lessons and college applications. I worked 48 years at the same insurance company, not because I loved insurance but because I loved what it bought: ballet lessons for Jennifer, Michael's trumpet, David's computer when those things cost more than a month's salary. I wore the same shoes for 3 years so they could have new ones every season. I pretended not to be hungry when there wasn't quite enough food, saying I'd eaten a big lunch at work. Fathers do that. We make ourselves smaller so our children can grow larger. The tremor in my hand started 2 years ago. Just a little shake at first, like I'd had too much coffee. But I haven't had coffee in 5 years. Doctor's orders, something about my heart. I ignored it the way you ignore a leaky faucet, hoping it'll fix itself, or at least not get worse. But tremors are like secrets. They grow in the darkness of denial. Dr. Patel is younger than my youngest son. She has kind eyes behind thick glasses and speaks slowly, as if I'm hard of hearing. I'm not. My ears work fine. It's my children who seem to have gone deaf. Mr. Hawthorne, she said that day 6 months ago, her hands folded over my file. The tests are conclusive. It's Parkinson's disease. I'd suspected as much. You don't get to be 87 without learning the names of all the ways a body can betray you. I nodded, asked the practical questions. How long? What's the progression? What are my options? You should contact your family, she said. You'll need support. I almost laughed. Support. I told her they were very busy, very important people. She gave me that look, the one that's half pity, half professional distance. She's probably seen 100 old men like me, sitting in that same chair, pretending their children are just too successful to visit. I didn't call them. What would I say? Hello, Michael, I know we haven't spoken in 2 years, but I'm dying slowly and thought you should know. Instead, I went home to my empty house and made myself a grilled cheese sandwich. Martha always said I made the best grilled cheese, with just the right amount of butter, and the cheese melted perfectly. It tasted like cardboard that day, but I ate every bite. You don't waste food when you grew up in the Depression. The disease progressed faster than Dr. Patel expected. Within 3 months, I needed a walker. The stairs became Mount Everest. I moved my life to the first floor, sleeping in what used to be my study. The second floor of the house became a museum of my former life. Bedrooms frozen in time, Martha's perfume bottles still on the dresser, gathering dust like memories. Young Tommy from next door started checking on me daily. He's 23, working on something called app development, that I don't understand but pretend to. He brings me groceries now, refuses the money I try to give him. My grandmother lives in Florida, he says. I'd want someone to do this for her. He doesn't say what we both think, that his grandmother probably has visitors. The tremors got worse. Simple tasks became Olympic events. Buttoning a shirt took 15 minutes. Writing became nearly impossible. These words I'm recording now on a voice recorder Tommy got me. It types it all out for you, he said, showing me how to use it. Technology, it seems, has solutions for everything except loneliness. I started putting my affairs in order. Not because I'm dying, we're all dying from the moment we're born, but because I learned something about myself in those quiet months. I learned that spite can be a powerful motivator for staying alive. 4 months ago, I made a decision. I sat at my father's old oak desk, the one he built with his own hands in 1943, before he went to war and came back different, and I dictated a letter to each of my children. Tommy typed them for me, printed them on the good stationery Martha kept for special occasions. Dear Michael, Jennifer, and David, each letter began. I am writing to inform you of changes to my estate planning. The words were formal, cold even. I'd written and rewritten them in my mind 100 times, sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, sometimes just tired. But in the end, I chose the language they'd understand, legal, distant, final. As you may or may not be aware, I have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The progression has been rapid. I am managing my affairs accordingly. This letter serves as notification that I am undertaking significant renovations to the Willow Creek property. These renovations will substantially affect the estate's value and disposition. If you have any interest in or concerns about your inheritance, I suggest you address them in person within the next 60 days. I didn't sign them. Love, Dad. I signed them. Samuel T. Hawthorne. In Tommy's neat handwriting, my own signature now just a wavering line like a heart monitor giving up. Tommy mailed them for me. Certified mail, return receipt requested. All 3 were received and signed for. Michael's assistant signed his. Jennifer signed hers at 6 a.m., probably between yoga and her green smoothie. David's wife signed his. I gave them 60 days. 60 days to call, to visit, to even send an angry email demanding to know what I was doing with their inheritance. The word made me laugh. Inherit means to receive from someone who dies. They'd already acted as if I were dead. I was just formalizing the arrangement. The 60 days passed in silence. On day 61, I called my lawyer. Not Michael, never Michael, but Eleanor Vance, an old friend of Martha's who still sends me Christmas cookies every year. Eleanor, I said, I want to make some changes. What followed was the most alive I'd felt in years. We liquidated my retirement accounts, sold the bonds, cashed in the life insurance policies. $347,000 in total. Not a fortune by today's standards, but not nothing either. Money I'd saved by driving the same car for 15 years, by never taking the vacations Martha dreamed of because college tuition came first, by eating beans and rice for dinner twice a week even after the kids left so I could keep adding to their inheritance. What do you want to do with it, Sam? Eleanor asked, her pen poised over her legal pad. I want to live, I told her. And I want to leave something behind that matters. We started with renovations to the house, but not the kind my children might expect. The first floor became fully wheelchair accessible. I installed a beautiful marble ramp where the front steps used to be, the kind that gleamed in the morning sun. The kitchen was redone with lower counters, pull-out shelves, everything someone with shaking hands could manage. The bathroom became a thing of beauty, a roll-in shower with Italian tile and grab bars that looked like art. But that was just the beginning. The backyard of the Willow Creek house spans 2 acres. It backs up to the actual Willow Creek, where Michael caught his first fish, where Jennifer buried her hamster in a shoebox funeral that required everyone to wear black, where David built dams and declared himself king of the water realm. 2 acres of memories going to seed. I decided to build a park. Not just any park, a fully accessible playground and garden for children with disabilities. The kind of place that didn't exist when my neighbor Caroline's grandson was born with cerebral palsy. The kind of place where kids in wheelchairs could play alongside kids who could run, where parents struggling with their children's diagnoses could sit on benches under willow trees and know they weren't alone. Tommy helped me find the contractors. We interviewed 12 companies before finding the right one, a young woman named Rosa whose own daughter used a wheelchair. She understood my vision immediately. Mr. Hawthorne, she said, looking at my rough sketches, this is beautiful. The work began in earnest. Excavators arrived, followed by landscapers, construction crews, specialists in adaptive equipment. The playground took shape, ramps and bridges, sensory gardens with plants chosen for texture and smell, a music section with instruments anyone could play regardless of ability. A fountain in the center, designed to be both beautiful and interactive, where children could control water jets with large, easy-to-push buttons. The neighbors complained at first about the noise, the trucks, the disruption. Then they saw what was being built. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down, whose great-grandson has autism, cried when she saw the quiet zones we were creating, small, enclosed spaces where overwhelmed children could retreat and reset. You're building this for them? She asked. For all of them? For everyone, I told her. But especially for the ones who get forgotten. The local newspaper got wind of the project. A young reporter named Beth came to interview me. She was maybe 25, earnest in the way that hadn't been beaten out of her yet. Mr. Hawthorne, this must be costing a fortune. Why are you doing this? I could have given her the pretty answer about community and giving back. Instead, I told her the truth. I'm dying slowly, and my children don't visit. This park will be here after I'm gone. Children will play here, laugh here, feel included here. That's a better legacy than money in a bank account for people who can't be bothered to check if I'm still breathing. She printed every word. The article ran on a Tuesday with the headline, Local Man Builds Tomorrow While Living Today. My phone rang for the first time in months. Not my children, they still maintained their silence, but strangers. Parents of children with disabilities, thanking me. Local businesses, wanting to contribute. A woman whose son had died of muscular dystrophy 5 years ago, offering to donate specialized equipment she'd kept in storage, unable to let go. I accepted it all. The park grew beyond my original vision. A therapy pool with a lift system. A greenhouse where children could learn to garden from seated positions. An art pavilion with adjustable easels and tables. Each addition carefully planned, each detail considered through the lens of inclusion. Tommy created a website for the park. Within a week, we had $3,000 in donations from people I'd never met. A local service club volunteered to maintain the grounds after I was gone. The city council voted to provide annual funding once the park was complete. Eleanor drew up the papers to transfer the property to a trust, the Samuel and Martha Hawthorne Memorial Park. No mention of Michael, Jennifer, or David. 3 months into construction, I made a discovery that changed everything. I'd been looking for Martha's old garden notebooks. She'd kept meticulous records of every plant she'd ever grown, and I wanted to incorporate her favorite flowers into the sensory garden. The notebooks were in the attic, a place I hadn't ventured in 5 years. Tommy helped me up the stairs, one excruciating step at a time. The attic was a time capsule, boxes labeled in Martha's neat handwriting, Christmas decorations we'd collected over 40 years, the rocking chair where she nursed all 3 babies. And in the corner, my father's old army trunk from World War II. I'd never opened it. My father died when I was 30, and my mother had passed the trunk to me with explicit instructions. When you need to understand, you'll open it. I'd always assumed it contained war memorabilia, maybe some medals, things too painful for him to discuss. But sitting there in the dusty light filtering through the attic window, I realized I was running out of time to understand anything. Tommy helped me drag it to the center of the room. The lock had long since rusted, but a crowbar solved that problem. Inside, I found not military items but papers, hundreds of documents, letters, and 3 leather journals filled with my father's cramped handwriting. The first journal entry was dated 1973, a year before he died. I begin this record for Samuel, though I pray he never needs to read it. What followed was a story I'd never known. My father had discovered that his brother, my Uncle Theodore, after whom I was middle named, had been systematically stealing from their mother's estate while she suffered from dementia. Legal documents, bank records, even photos of checks made out to cash and signed with a shaky forgery of my grandmother's signature. My father had gathered evidence for 2 years, planning to confront Theodore, but died of a heart attack before he could act. But that wasn't the revelation that shook me. It was the letter tucked behind the journals, addressed to me in my mother's handwriting, dated a month after my father's death. My dear Samuel, if you're reading this, then you've opened the trunk despite my wishes. Your father wanted to protect you from the truth about family and money, about how blood can turn to water when gold is involved. Theodore took everything from your grandmother, nearly $200,000, which would be a fortune today. Your father's heart broke not from the theft but from the betrayal. His own brother, whom he'd protected in the war, whom he'd loved without question. I tell you this now because I see how you love your children, how you give them everything. But remember, my son, love without boundaries invites those who would take without gratitude. Your father learned too late that family can be the cruelest stranger. Don't let your heart be broken by those who share your blood but not your values. The trunk contains all the evidence, should you ever need it. Theodore's children, your cousins Michael, Jennifer, and Sarah, have prospered from their father's theft. They built their lives on stolen foundation. I've watched them at family gatherings, so proud of their father's business acumen, never knowing. Guard your heart, Samuel. And guard your assets. Love your children, but don't let love make you blind. I sat in that attic for 3 hours, reading every document, every journal entry, every piece of evidence my father had compiled. Theodore had died wealthy and respected 15 years ago. His children, my cousins who shared my children's names, a coincidence that now felt like a curse, had inherited his fortune and his lies. The parallels were too obvious to ignore. History rhyming, if not repeating. But I wouldn't die with evidence in a trunk. I wouldn't let betrayal fester in silence. I had already begun my response. The park was my answer to abandonment, my hedge against heartbreak. A week after the attic discovery, I had an unexpected visitor. Sarah, my cousin, Theodore's daughter, stood at my door on a Thursday afternoon. She was 73 now, silver-haired and well-preserved in the way money allows. I hadn't seen her in a decade. "Samuel," she said, "may I come in?" I let her in, curious. We sat in the living room, the sound of construction equipment humming from the backyard. She noticed my walker, the tremor in my hands as I poured tea, but said nothing about them. "I saw the article in the paper," she began, "about the park you're building. And?" She set down her teacup carefully. "My father left me a letter when he died. To be opened only if certain conditions were met. One of those conditions was if you ever opened your father's trunk." I kept my face neutral, but she saw through it. "You have opened it, haven't you?" Recently, I'd guess, from your expression. What do you want, Sarah? She pulled an envelope from her purse, yellowed with age. My father's confession. He wrote it when he was diagnosed with cancer, but never sent it. He was a coward until the end. I read Theodore's letter. His justification, that he'd been passed over in their father's will, that my grandmother had always favored my father, that the money was rightfully his. The mental gymnastics of a thief convincing himself he was victim. Why bring this to me now? I asked. Sarah looked out the window at the construction. Because I have grandchildren with disabilities. 2 of them. And because guilt is hereditary, apparently. I've known about the theft for 15 years. I've been waiting for you to find out, dreading it, relieved when years passed and you didn't. But that article, you're turning pain into purpose. My father turned purpose into pain. She pulled out a checkbook. I want to contribute to the park. Anonymously. Consider it restitution. The check was for $200,000. This is too much, I said. It's what he stole, adjusted for inflation, with interest, she replied. I've done the math every year for 15 years. I could have refused it, held on to my pride. But I thought of the children who would use the park, the families who would find community there. Pride is a luxury the dying can't afford. The park could use a therapy center, I said finally. A real one, with trained staff. Sarah smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. Then build it. Name it after your father. He deserved better than he got. After she left, I called Eleanor. We drew up plans for the Theodore Hawthorne Therapy Center. I didn't tell her about the trunk, about the theft, about the generations of betrayal. Some stories are meant to die with their keepers. But justice can live forever in concrete and compassion. The newspaper ran another story. Anonymous donor funds therapy center at Hawthorne Park. My children still didn't call. But their silence was about to end. 3 weeks ago, as the park neared completion, Eleanor had sent them formal notice that the estate was being transferred to the trust. Legal notification that their inheritance was becoming something else entirely. She'd sent it certified mail, requiring personal signature, no assistants, no spouses. They signed for the letters on a Monday. By Wednesday, Michael's law firm had called Eleanor. By Friday, all 3 had booked flights home. They would arrive tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anxiety or anger, but from a strange sense of anticipation, like a playwright on opening night. I sat in Martha's chair by the window, watching the sun rise over the nearly completed park. The fountain was running now, its water catching the early light like scattered diamonds. A family of deer had discovered the sensory garden, nibbling carefully at the plants we'd chosen specifically to be deer-resistant. Even nature, it seemed, had its rebels. Tommy arrived at 7 with breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast he'd made at his apartment, and brought over still warm. Big day, he said simply. He knew about my children's impending arrival. The whole neighborhood knew. News travels fast in a small community, especially when it involves lawyers and inheritance disputes. I need you to do something for me, I told Tommy, handing him a list I'd written with great difficulty the night before. Can you set this up in the study? He read the list, his eyebrows rising. Mr. H., are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything except marrying Martha. While Tommy ran his errands, I had other visitors. Rosa came by with the final inspection certificates for the playground. Everything had passed with flying colors, every safety standard exceeded, every accessibility requirement not just met but surpassed. We've created something special here, Mr. Hawthorne, she said, squeezing my trembling hand. Beth from the newspaper stopped by, hoping for a quote about my children's return. I gave her nothing but a smile. Some stories need to end before they can be told, I said. She left disappointed but respectful. Eleanor arrived at noon with a box of documents. Everything you asked for, she said, setting them on the dining room table. Are you sure you want to do this alone? I can stay. No, I said. This is between me and them. But thank you for everything, Eleanor. Martha would be proud of how you've helped me. She kissed my forehead like a blessing. Martha would be proud of you, Sam. Don't let them make you forget that. By 2 o'clock, Tommy had completed his task. The study had been transformed. 3 chairs faced my father's oak desk. On the desk, 3 manila envelopes, each labeled with a name. Behind the desk, my father's trunk, open, its contents visible. On the walls, Tommy had hung pictures according to my specifications, photos from every stage of my children's lives, but also photos they'd never seen. My father teaching me to fish. My mother at her sewing machine, making Halloween costumes. Martha and me on our wedding day, young and foolish and brave. And on the side table, the voice recorder, ready to capture whatever came next. Michael arrived first, because of course he did. Punctuality was power in his world. He looked older than 52, gray at the temples, lines around his mouth that suggested a lifetime of frowning. He wore a suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on clothes in the last decade. Dad, he said, the word rusty from disuse. Michael. Jennifer came 15 minutes later, time to make an entrance. She looked like Martha around the eyes, but Martha's eyes had never been that calculating. She kissed my cheek, a gesture so empty it might have been performed by a stranger on a stage. You look well, she lied. David arrived last, 40 minutes late, checking his phone as he walked through the door. He'd gained weight, lost hair, acquired the soft look of a man who hired others to do any physical labor. He didn't make eye contact. Let's discuss this situation, he said, as if I were a problem to be solved in a board meeting. I led them to the study, moving slowly with my walker, letting them follow at my pace for once. They sat in the chairs I'd arranged, looking uncomfortable in the room where they'd once done homework, where I'd helped with science projects and book reports, where Martha had taught Jennifer to sew and Michael to play chess. Before we discussed the estate, I began, settling painfully into my father's chair. I want to tell you a story. Dad, we don't have time. Michael started. You have time, I interrupted, my voice stronger than it had been in months. For once in 12 years you have time. I told them about the diagnosis, the tremors, the progression. I told them about the 60 days I'd given them to respond, the silence that followed. I told them about the park, the children it would serve, the community that had embraced it. I watched their faces change, Michael's from impatience to calculation, Jennifer's from boredom to alarm, David's from distraction to attention. You spent everything on a playground? David asked, incredulous. Not everything, I said, pushing the 3 envelopes across the desk. Open them. Each envelope contained the same thing, a bank statement showing a trust fund in their name, funded with exactly $1,000. Below that, a letter I'd dictated to Tommy, printed on my father's letterhead from 1960 that I'd found in the trunk. Michael read his aloud, his lawyer voice steady but his hands shaking slightly. This trust fund represents your inheritance from the estate of Samuel Theodore Hawthorne. The amount reflects the exact number of hours you've spent with me in the past 12 years, multiplied by minimum wage. Michael, 37 hours. Jennifer, 28 hours. David, 19 hours. I valued your time as you valued mine, at the least possible rate. Jennifer's face flushed red. This is vindictive. This is elder abuse. We can challenge this in court. You could. I agreed, then gestured to the trunk. But first, you might want to read those documents. They detail how your grandfather's brother, your Uncle Theodore, whom you were all named after in a cosmic joke, stole hundreds of thousands from your great-grandmother while she was dying of dementia. The exact same way you've tried to steal from me by neglecting me until you thought I was dying. David laughed, bitter and short. So this is about revenge? No, I said, pulling out the voice recorder and setting it on the desk. This is about truth. And choice. And one last chance. I pressed record. I have Parkinson's disease. It's advancing rapidly. Dr. Patel estimates I have perhaps a year, maybe 2 if I'm lucky. The park will be finished next week. After the dedication ceremony, I'll be moving to an assisted living facility, Golden Acres, the nice one on Maple Street. It's been paid for in advance, the whole thing arranged. I paused, looking at each of them in turn. The house itself, not the land with the park, but the physical house, is still in my name. It's worth approximately $300,000 in the current market. That could be your inheritance, divided 3 ways. $100,000 each. Not life-changing money for any of you, but not nothing either. Michael leaned forward, interested now. But to inherit it, I continued, you have to earn it. Not with money, but with time. Visit me once a week at Golden Acres. Real visits, 1 hour minimum, no phones, just conversation. Do that for the next year, however long I have, and the house is yours. Miss more than 2 weeks in a row without a valid medical excuse, and your share goes to the park's maintenance fund. This is manipulation, Jennifer said coldly. This is opportunity. I corrected. The same opportunity you had for the last 12 years and squandered. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to show up. To be present. To pretend, if necessary, that I matter for 1 hour a week. David stood up, pacing to the window. And if we refuse? Then you get your $1,000 and we part ways forever. The house will be sold, and the proceeds will build a respite center for families with disabled children, parents who are too tired to keep going but too loving to give up. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the same clock that had measured every Christmas morning, every birthday, every moment of their childhood. I could see them calculating, these children of mine who had inherited my face but not my values. Michael's fingers tapped against his thigh, a nervous habit from when he was 7 and learning multiplication tables. Jennifer twisted her wedding ring, a 10-carat monument to success that couldn't buy her peace. David stared at the pictures on the wall, seeing them perhaps for the first time. You can't be serious, Michael finally said, his lawyer voice cracking. This is emotional blackmail. Is it? I asked. Is it blackmail to ask for 52 hours a year from children I gave 18 years of daily devotion? Is it manipulation to request 1% of your time in exchange for a gift you didn't earn? Jennifer stood, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor Martha had refinished with her own hands while pregnant with David. Dad, you don't understand. We have obligations, careers, families of our own. Families, I repeated, tasting the word like medicine. Yes, tell me about your families. Michael, when did you last eat dinner with your son instead of working late? Jennifer, does your daughter know any stories about her grandmother beyond what fits in a Facebook post? David, you don't even have a family because you've been too busy making money to make connections. The truth hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Tommy knocked softly and entered with a tea tray, Martha's china, the set she'd saved for 20 years to buy, used only for special occasions. This qualified. Thank you, Tommy, I said. Tommy, meet my children. Children, meet Tommy, the grandson I chose rather than the ones I was denied. Tommy nodded politely and left, but not before I saw Michael notice the ease with which Tommy helped me with my teacup, the casual intimacy of actual care. 1 hour a week, I continued after sipping my tea. The same amount of time you spend getting your cars detailed, Jennifer. Less time than your weekly golf game, Michael. A fraction of the time you spend analyzing market trends, David. David returned to his chair, slumping in it the way he had as a teenager. What would we even talk about? The question broke my heart more than their absence ever had. We could start with the truth. With why you stopped calling. With when exactly I became an obligation to be managed rather than a father to be loved. You want us to feel guilty, Jennifer accused. No, I said, and meant it. Guilt is useless, a feeling that changes nothing. I want you to choose. Either I'm worth 1 hour a week, or I'm not. Either family means something beyond DNA and potential inheritance, or it doesn't. Make your choice and live with it, but make it honestly. Michael loosened his tie, a gesture I remembered from when he was young and overwhelmed by homework. What if we try and fail? What if we can't think of things to say? Then we sit in silence. I said. Sometimes silence says more than words. Your mother and I could sit for hours reading, just being in the same room, and it was enough. Presence doesn't require performance. I pulled out 3 business cards from my shirt pocket, handing one to each of them. This is the contact information for Golden Acres. I move in next Tuesday after the park dedication. Visiting hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. I've already put you on the approved visitor list. Jennifer studied the card like evidence in a trial. And if we agree? How do we know you won't change your mind, won't alter the will again? Because unlike you, I said quietly, I keep my promises. The documents are already drawn up, held in escrow by Eleanor. Fulfill the terms, and they execute automatically upon my death. Default, and they revert to the park fund. It's ironclad and irreversible. David picked up one of the photos from the wall, him at age 6, missing his front teeth, holding a fish nearly as big as he was, my arms around him to help support the weight. I remember this, he said softly. Lake Michigan. You woke me up at 4 in the morning. You wanted to catch a big one. I recalled. We sat in that boat for 6 hours. You never complained once. Jennifer got mad because we didn't take her. He added, the ghost of a smile crossing his face. I wanted to go. Jennifer admitted, surprising us all. But I had a dance recital that day. I cried for hours. So we went the next weekend. I reminded her. Just you and me. You didn't catch anything, but you named all the fish you could see through the water. Frederick, Anastasia, and Mr. Bubbles. She said, then looked startled that she remembered. Michael had moved to the trunk, examining the documents about Theodore. Did grandfather know? About the theft? He knew. It killed him, literally, I believe. The stress triggered his heart attack. He died believing that family was just another word for betrayal. But you didn't, Michael observed, looking at the photos spanning the walls. Even after Mom died, even after we. He couldn't finish the sentence. I believed until 61 days ago, I admitted. When the deadline passed, and none of you responded, I finally understood what my father felt. The difference is, I decided to do something with that understanding beyond dying bitter. Jennifer picked up another photo, her high school graduation. Martha in a yellow dress she'd sewn herself because we couldn't afford to buy one nice enough for the occasion. Me in my only suit, the one I wore to work every day. Jennifer in her cap and gown, valedictorian, headed to Stanford on a partial scholarship we'd supplemented by taking out a second mortgage. You never told me about the mortgage, she said quietly. You didn't need that burden. You needed to soar. But I did soar, she said, tears starting to form. Right away from you. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like memories in the air. The construction sounds from the park had stopped for the day. In the distance, I could hear children playing, neighborhood kids who'd already discovered the unfinished playground, their laughter carrying on the wind like hope. I need to show you something, I said, struggling to my feet. They followed me, slowly, matching my walker's pace, to the back door. The park spread before us in the golden light. The playground equipment gleamed. The sensory garden rustled with wind chimes and textured plants. The fountain sent rainbow sprays into the air. And everywhere, accessibility, ramps and rails and wide paths and shaded rest areas. This is what $347,000 looks like when it's transformed into purpose, I said. This is my inheritance to the world, a place where no child is forgotten, where no parent has to apologize for their child's limitations, where difference is celebrated rather than hidden. David walked to the railing, gripping it tightly. It's beautiful, Dad. It really is. Your mother would have loved it, Jennifer added. Michael said nothing, but I saw him wipe his eyes. The dedication is Tuesday at 10. I told them. The whole town is coming. The mayor will speak. 3 families with disabled children will cut the ribbon. I'll say a few words if the tremors allow. You're invited, but not expected. After all, you haven't been expected in 12 years. We returned to the study in silence. The tea had gone cold. The afternoon was fading into evening, casting long shadows across the room. My children, these strangers who carried my DNA, sat back down in their assigned chairs, but something had shifted. The defensive walls they'd arrived with showed cracks. I need to ask you something, Jennifer said suddenly. That day at Mom's funeral, when you fell. You saw that? I interrupted, surprised. I was coming back. I'd forgotten my phone in the church. I saw you collapse by her grave after everyone left. Tommy's grandmother helped you up. Why didn't you? I started, then stopped. I knew why. I was afraid, she admitted. Afraid if I went to you, I'd never be able to leave again. That I'd be trapped here, watching you die the way we watched Mom die. So you left me to die alone instead. I said without accusation, just fact. Michael cleared his throat. Dad, the work you did, the park, who helped you with all of this? Tommy. Rosa. Eleanor. Mrs. Patterson. Beth from the newspaper. The entire construction crew who worked extra hours without extra pay because they believed in it. Strangers who became family while my family became strangers. David stood again, unable to stay still. You're right to be angry. We failed you. We failed Mom's memory. We failed ourselves. He looked at his siblings. I've been failing at everything, actually. My marriage ended 6 months ago. I didn't tell anyone. I've been living in my office, pretending everything's fine, making money I don't even spend on anything meaningful. This was news to all of us. Jennifer reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Don't, he said. Don't pretend we're close now. We haven't been close since Mom died. Maybe before. Michael's phone buzzed. He looked at it, then did something I'd never seen. He turned it completely off. My son is 15. He said to no one in particular. He doesn't talk to me. I don't know his favorite color or what he wants to be when he grows up. I've become you to him, Dad. Except you always knew those things about us. Blue, lawyer like his father but with a soul, and he's scared you'll divorce his mother like all his friends' parents are divorced. I said quietly. Michael stared at me. How could you possibly know that? He sends me emails. Has for 2 years. Found my address online and wrote to ask about you as a child. We correspond monthly. He's a good kid, Michael. He just wants his father to see him. The revelation hung between us like a bridge over 12 years of silence. He never told me. Michael whispered. Did you ever ask? I responded. Jennifer had begun crying quietly, the kind of tears that come when walls finally fall. I've been in therapy for 3 years. She confessed. Talking about my mother's death, my inability to connect with my own daughter, my perfect life that feels like a prison. My therapist keeps asking about you, and I keep saying you're fine, you're independent, you don't need me. But that's not true, is it? I needed to believe you didn't need me because I couldn't bear the weight of being needed. The weight of being needed. I repeated. That's what love is, Jennifer. The beautiful, terrible weight of being needed and needing in return. The room fell silent again. Outside, I heard a car door slam, probably Tommy returning from his evening classes. He'd check on me before bed, make sure I'd taken my medications, eaten dinner. The routine care of someone who chose to love me. I'll do it, David said suddenly. The visits. I'll come every week. Jennifer nodded. Me too. But not for the money. I don't want the money. I want. She paused, searching for words. I want to know you. The real you. Not the father I remember or the one I've been running from, but who you are now. We all looked at Michael. He was studying his hands that looked exactly like mine before the tremors started. I don't know if I can, he said honestly. I've built my entire life on not feeling things. On contracts and billable hours and concrete outcomes. I don't know how to just be with someone. Then learn, I said simply. The same way you learned to ride that bike, falling and getting up until you could balance. The same way you learned law, one case at a time. The same way you learned to live without your mother, badly at first, then better, though never completely. Michael stood and walked to the window overlooking the park. The setting sun painted everything gold, the playground, the gardens, the fountain that would run every day regardless of who came to see it. Do you hate us? He asked without turning around. No, I said immediately. Hate requires energy I don't have. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm lonely. But I don't hate you. I couldn't. You're part of Martha, and I could never hate anything that was part of her. We hated you, David said suddenly, then looked shocked at his own words. After Mom died. We hated you for surviving when she didn't. For being the one left behind. For needing us when we needed her. The honesty was brutal but necessary, like surgery without anesthesia. I know, I said. I hated me too for a while. Survivor's guilt, they call it. But Martha would have been furious with all of us. She lived every day like it was a gift. She would have expected us to do the same. Jennifer pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, then showed me the screen. It was a video of her daughter, my granddaughter I'd seen only in pictures, playing violin. She's really good, Jennifer said. She has a recital next month. Could you come? I'll be in Golden Acres by then. I reminded her. My traveling days are over. Then we'll bring the recital to you, she said firmly. She can play in the common room. The other residents would probably love it. It was a small gesture, but it was a beginning. Michael returned to his chair. Dad, I need to tell you something. I've been managing your accounts. Not officially, but I've been monitoring them. I know about every transaction, every payment to the construction crews, every donation that came in. I told myself I was protecting you from being swindled. And? I prompted. And I realized about halfway through that you knew exactly what you were doing. Every penny accounted for, every contract negotiated fairly but firmly. You got better deals than I could have as a lawyer. You played the confused old man when it suited you and the sharp businessman when needed. I smiled. 48 years in insurance taught me about contracts. And people always underestimate the elderly. It's an advantage if you use it right. Like you're using it now? Jennifer asked. This whole thing, the park, the inheritance test, even this meeting, it's all calculated, isn't it? Everything except the Parkinson's, I admitted. That was unplanned. But yes, I calculated. I had 12 years of silence to plan. Did you think I'd spend them just waiting to die? David laughed, a real laugh, not bitter this time. You played us. You're actually playing us right now. No, I corrected. I'm teaching you. One last lesson from a father to his children. The lesson is this: love is not passive. It's not a feeling you have, it's a choice you make, over and over, especially when it's hard. I chose to love you through 12 years of silence. Now I'm asking you to choose to love me through 52 weeks of presence. After that, the choice is yours to continue or walk away. Tommy knocked and entered. Mr. H., it's time for your evening medications. Should I? He stopped, seeing the scene before him. Tommy, we were just leaving, Michael said, standing. But we'll be back. When? I asked. Michael looked at his siblings. They had a silent conversation, the kind they used to have as children planning mischief. Tuesday, Jennifer said. For the dedication. All of us. And then? I pressed. And then we'll see you at Golden Acres. Wednesday afternoon. 2 o'clock? She looked at her brothers for confirmation. 2 o'clock, they agreed. Tuesday arrived with the kind of perfect September weather Martha used to call gift days: clear blue sky, gentle breeze, temperature that required neither jacket nor short sleeves. I woke at 5, unable to sleep, and sat by the window watching the sunrise paint the park in shades of rose and gold. Tommy arrived early to help me dress. I'd chosen my best suit, the one I'd bought for Martha's funeral but couldn't bear to wear that day. Today felt like the right time. My hands shook too badly to manage the buttons, but Tommy's fingers were steady and patient. "They'll come," he said, not a question but a statement of faith. "Maybe," I replied, but I found I didn't care as much as I'd expected. The park existed. Children would play. That was enough. By 9:30, people had begun gathering. The turnout exceeded everyone's expectations. 3 local news crews set up cameras. The high school band assembled near the fountain. Families with children in wheelchairs and walkers arrived early to get good positions. I recognized many faces: customers from my insurance days, nurses from Martha's final hospital stay, neighbors who'd watched my children grow up. Eleanor wheeled me to the podium. I'd finally accepted the wheelchair for important events, saving my energy for what mattered. The mayor spoke first, talking about community and inclusion. The president of the Disabilities Alliance spoke about the desperate need for spaces like this. Parents gave testimonials that brought tears to hardened reporters' eyes. Then it was my turn. Tommy had helped me prepare remarks, but as I was wheeled to the microphone, I decided to speak from the heart instead. "My wife Martha loved gardens," I began, my voice amplified across the crowd. "She believed that with proper care, good soil, and enough love, anything could grow. When she died 12 years ago, I thought nothing would grow in my life again. I was wrong." I paused, scanning the crowd. No sign of my children yet. This park grew from loneliness. From the realization that feeling forgotten is perhaps the worst pain a human can endure. But loneliness, properly composted, can fertilize something beautiful. Every piece of equipment here, every carefully chosen plant, every accessible pathway represents a choice to transform pain into purpose, isolation into inclusion, abandonment into abundance. Movement at the back of the crowd caught my eye. Michael, in jeans and a polo shirt instead of his usual suit. Jennifer, her hair pulled back simply, holding hands with a teenage girl who looked just like Martha. David, wearing a t-shirt that said, "World's okayest uncle," pushing an elderly woman in a wheelchair. "This park is named for my wife and myself," I continued, my voice stronger. "But it belongs to you. To every child who's been told they can't play here. To every parent who's been told their child doesn't belong. To every grandparent who wants to push their grandbaby on a swing but couldn't navigate the mulch. You belong here. You all belong here." The crowd applauded. The 3 children with disabilities, 2 in wheelchairs, 1 with leg braces, cut the ribbon. The fountain erupted in a choreographed display that Tommy had programmed. The band played "What a Wonderful World," Martha's favorite song. And then my children were there, standing before me. Jennifer's daughter, my granddaughter Sophia, stepped forward shyly. "Grandpa?" she said, the word tentative but real. "Mom said you might like to hear this." She pulled out her violin and played, not a classical piece but "What a Wonderful World," picking up where the band had left off. Her playing was imperfect but heartfelt, and when she finished, the crowd erupted. Michael knelt beside my wheelchair. "Dad, I brought someone." The elderly woman David had been pushing reached out a trembling hand. It was Michael's mother-in-law, Grace, whom I'd met only once at his wedding 20 years ago. "Mr. Hawthorne," she said, "my grandson, your grandson, couldn't come today. School. But he wanted me to give you this." She handed me a letter, addressed in teenage handwriting. "To Grandpa Sam, the one who writes back." David cleared his throat. "I brought something too." He pulled out a worn baseball glove, his from Little League, the one I'd saved extra shifts to buy. "Found this in my storage unit. Thought maybe some kid here could use it. If that's okay." "Everything's okay," I said, and meant it. I'm recording this final part 13 months after the dedication, from my room at Golden Acres. It's a nice room, pictures on every wall, fresh flowers that Jennifer brings weekly, A view of a small garden that reminds me of Martha's, though nothing could truly compare. The year has been nothing like I expected. My children came that first Wednesday as promised. We sat in awkward silence for 20 minutes before David pulled out a deck of cards. Gin rummy? He asked. Martha had taught them all to play on rainy Saturdays. We played cards and said little, but they stayed the full hour. The second week, Jennifer brought photo albums I hadn't seen in years. We went through them slowly, me narrating the stories behind each image, them remembering details I'd forgotten. Michael recorded it all on his phone. For Sophia, he said. And James. James, my grandson who'd been writing to me. By the third week, a rhythm developed. Wednesday at 2 became sacred. Michael started taking the afternoon off, unheard of in his career. Jennifer flew in from San Francisco monthly, staying for several days each time. David, living closest, came twice a week, sometimes more. Week by week, visit by visit, we rebuilt. Not what we'd had, that was gone forever, but something new. Something that acknowledged the years of silence without being defined by them. Michael brought James on week 6. A tall, quiet boy with my eyes and Martha's smile. "Hi, Grandpa," he said, as if we'd been saying it all our lives. He showed me an essay he'd written about heroes. It was about me. I cried without shame. Jennifer's husband, Robert, started coming on week 8. A decent man who'd been afraid of me, apparently. "Jen made you sound like King Lear," he admitted. We bonded over fishing stories and shared worry about Jennifer's tendency to overdrive herself. David introduced me to his ex-wife on week 12. They were trying again, slowly. "Dad's dying taught us about wasted time," he explained. The divorce had never been finalized. They held hands during the entire visit. The park thrived beyond imagination. Tommy sent me videos daily, children playing, parents crying with relief at finding a place their kids could just be kids, therapy sessions in the center Sarah's money had built. The mayor announced plans to build 2 more accessible parks based on our model. But this isn't really about the park anymore. It's about what happened in this small room over 52 weeks of Wednesdays. It's about Michael learning to laugh again, really laugh, not the courtroom chuckle but the belly laugh I remembered from when he was 7. It's about Jennifer finally grieving her mother properly, 12 years late but not too late. It's about David finding his way back to the boy who built kingdoms by the creek. It's about James teaching me to play games on something called a Nintendo Switch, patience on both sides as my trembling hands struggled with the controls. It's about Sophia's monthly recitals in the common room, where she played for an audience of forgotten elderly who remembered, for an hour, what it felt like to be seen. It's about Grace, not the woman, though she visited monthly too, but the concept. The radical idea that people can fail you and love you simultaneously. That forgiveness doesn't erase the past but can still write a different future. My Parkinson's has progressed faster than anyone expected. Dr. Patel says I'm defying expectations by lasting this long, but I know better. I was waiting to see if they'd come. Waiting to see if a year could heal 12 years. Waiting to know if I'd die alone or surrounded. I know now. I need to tell you about yesterday. It's important you understand what happened when they came for the estate. Not a year ago, but yesterday, when everything finally made sense. Dr. Patel says I have perhaps a week, maybe 2. The tremors have become constant storms. I can no longer swallow easily. The voice recorder sits by my bed, my last reliable witness. But my mind remains clear, like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. Eleanor came yesterday morning with the final papers. The house, as promised, would transfer to my children upon my death. They'd earned it, 52 weeks without missing once. Michael even came during a blizzard, walking the last mile when roads became impassable. Jennifer flew in during a hurricane flight delay that took 36 hours. David spent his birthday here, bringing cake for the entire wing. "They've changed," Eleanor observed, watching Jennifer spoon-feed me soup while Michael read the newspaper aloud and David fixed the wobbling table that had annoyed me for months. We all have, I replied. But here's what I haven't told them. What Eleanor brought wasn't just the house transfer papers. There was something else, something I'd arranged months ago when I realized they would complete their year, would earn their inheritance, would receive exactly what they'd come for in the beginning. At 4 o'clock, Eleanor returned with my children. Your father has something to show you, she said. They gathered around my bed, concerned. These days, any unusual request triggers fear that this is goodbye. We need to go to the house, I said. Dad, you're too weak, Jennifer protested. One last time, I insisted. Please. They carried me, literally. Michael and David made a chair with their arms while Jennifer steadied my head. Just like I'd carried them countless times, upstairs to bed, from car to house when they'd fallen asleep on long drives. The circle completing itself. Tommy drove us in his van, the one he bought specifically to transport me to appointments. The house looked different, not abandoned anymore. My children had been maintaining it during their visits, taking turns checking on things. Jennifer had planted flowers in Martha's old garden. Michael had repaired the front steps. David had painted the shutters. They wheeled me to the front door, then stopped. Because the door had changed. Where once there had been solid oak, now stood a door made entirely of glass panels, hundreds of them, each etched with words. At the top, in Martha's handwriting, reproduced from a love letter I'd saved. Love lives here. Below that, covering every inch, names, dates, memories. Every child who's played in the park, I explained as they stared. Tommy helped me collect them. Each family wrote their child's name and one word describing what the park means to them. Hope. Joy. Belonging. Freedom. Acceptance. Jennifer was crying openly now. Michael's lawyer composure had crumbled. David touched the glass gently, reading name after name. But Dad, David said, we can't sell this. Not with this door. Not with what it means. Then don't sell it, I said simply. They looked at me, understanding dawning. The house is yours as promised, I continued, each word an effort now. But perhaps it's not meant to be sold. Perhaps it's meant to be something else. Michael found it first, a small plaque I'd had installed beside the door. The Hawthorne Family Center, a gathering place for families touched by the Samuel and Martha Hawthorne Memorial Park. The paperwork is inside, Eleanor said softly. If you choose, the house can be converted to a family center. A place for support groups, birthday parties for kids who can't have them elsewhere, holiday celebrations for families who need community. The trust has enough funds to maintain it. Anonymous donors have been quite generous. I didn't tell them Sarah had contributed another 100,000. Some secrets should remain secret. It would mean no money, Jennifer said, but she was smiling through her tears. No inheritance at all. No, I corrected. It would mean the only inheritance that matters, purpose. They pushed my wheelchair into the house one last time. Everything had been prepared. The living room, where we'd opened Christmas presents for 18 years, was now set up as a meeting space. The kitchen, where Martha had cooked 10,000 meals, gleamed with new appliances suitable for cooking classes. The study, where I told them the hard truth a year ago, had become a library filled with books about disabilities, parenting, and hope. And on every wall, pictures. Not just of our family, but of all the families who'd used the park. Hundreds of faces, all different, all beautiful, all belonging. When? Michael asked. When did you do all this? Tommy and his crew have been working nights for months, I admitted. I wanted it ready. Ready for what? David asked. For you to choose. One last time. Take the money or take the meaning. They didn't even discuss it. Jennifer signed first, then Michael, then David. The house would become the family center. Their inheritance would be measured not in dollars but in the laughter of children, the relief of parents, the building of community. As we left, I looked back at the door one last time. The setting sun hit the etched glass, sending rainbows across the lawn where my children had played, where their children might play, where children they'd never meet would play for generations. Are you angry? Jennifer asked as we drove back to Golden Acres. That we abandoned you? That it took extortion to bring us back? No, I said, and meant it completely for the first time. Because you came back. You chose to come back. And in the end, that's all any of us can do, choose to come back to love, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Michael squeezed my hand. We won't leave again, Dad. Not until. I know, I said. But after I'm gone, don't leave each other. That's my real last will and testament, don't leave each other. They promised. And I believed them. Because 52 weeks of Wednesdays had taught us all that promises can be kept, silence can be broken, and love can be rebuilt from the ashes of regret. Final recording. My name is Samuel Theodore Hawthorne. I'm 88 years old now, and I'm dying surrounded by my children. They take shifts sleeping in the chair beside my bed. Jennifer sings Martha's favorite songs. Michael tells stories about James's college acceptance letters. David reads me the emails from families who use the park, the center, the spaces we created from loneliness. I was wrong in the beginning of this story. I said I had 3 children. Had. Have. The verb tenses got complicated. But they're not complicated anymore. I have 3 children. Present tense. Always present tense, even when they were absent. Because love doesn't operate in past or future, it only exists in the eternal now, in the choice we make in this moment to hold on or let go. I choose to hold on, even as my body lets go. The door to my room at Golden Acres is always open now. Not because I'm dying, but because I'm finally, fully, completely alive. Children from the pediatric ward visit. Tommy brings them to see the old man who built the park. They don't see my tremors, my failures, my failing body. They see someone who understood what it means to be different, to be excluded, to need a place to belong. My children see me too now. Not the father they abandoned or the man who tested them, but simply Dad. The one who loved them badly sometimes, while other times, but always, always, always. Martha was right. With proper care, good soil, and enough love, anything can grow. Even forgiveness. Even families. Even hope from the hardest ground. Samuel Theodore Hawthorne passed away peacefully on September 16, 2025, at 3:42 a.m., surrounded by his 3 children, 2 grandchildren, and Tommy, the grandson he chose. His last words, whispered to his children, were, "The door is always open." The Samuel and Martha Hawthorne Memorial Park has since served over 10,000 families. The Hawthorne Family Center hosts weekly support groups, monthly celebrations, and daily proof that love, properly planted, never truly dies. Asterisk.